You're staring out the window, lost in thought. To anyone else, you seem distracted, maybe even lazy, but in your mind, you're solving problems, exploring ideas, and connecting the dots in ways no one else sees. It's like a superpower hiding in plain sight. What if the habits people see as odd, like daydreaming or talking to yourself, are actually signs of intelligence? And not just any intelligence, but the kind that unlocks breakthroughs and transforms lives. Here's the truth. We all have quirks we try to hide or downplay. But what if those quirks are the keys to mastering our potential? Could the very habits we dismiss, like doodling during a meeting or leaving our desks a little messy, be the secret to living smarter and better? That's exactly what we're diving into today. In this video, I'll uncover 7 habits rooted in Stoic philosophy and backed by modern science, like psychology and neuroscience, that will make you see your behaviors in a whole new light. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're actionable, relatable, and life-changing. So, before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more insights that help you master your mind and lead a purposeful life. You won't want to miss what's next. It might just change how you think forever. Let's get started. Number 1. Productive daydreaming. Why staring into space works. Silence is a lesson learned through life's many conversations. This Stoic wisdom speaks to the power of moments when the mind drifts quietly, yet purposefully. Take him, for example. A man caught in the grind of daily life, his desk buried under tasks that demand immediate attention. He spends his mornings drowning in emails, his afternoons juggling meetings, and his evenings consumed by endless to-do lists. Yet, one day as he stared out the window, lost in thought, something shifted. For weeks he had been stuck on a work problem, a puzzle he couldn't solve despite all his focus and effort. But in that quiet moment, with his gaze fixed on nothing in particular, the solution clicked into place. It wasn't during a brainstorming session or a high-pressure meeting. It happened in a moment of unintentional daydreaming. That single insight not only solved his problem, but also opened up a new perspective he hadn't considered before. The twist? His so-called wasted time staring into space was actually when his brain was at its most active. Neuroscience calls this the default mode network, a state where the mind makes connections, reflects deeply, and processes information in the background. The Stoics knew this well. They embraced stillness, understanding that moments of quiet reflection are where clarity emerges and solutions unfold. It wasn't about doing nothing, it was about giving the mind room to breathe. Yet how often do we dismiss these moments? In a world obsessed with productivity, daydreaming seems counterintuitive. But science and philosophy agree, it's a superpower waiting to be unleashed. Even Einstein credited his biggest breakthroughs to moments when his mind wandered. And he wasn't alone. Many great thinkers and innovators, from artists to scientists, found their genius not in frantic action, but in calm reflection. So what about you? How many times have you rushed from one task to the next, trying to force a solution, only to find it slipping further away? What if instead, you allowed yourself 10 minutes of quiet each day? No screens, no interruptions, just a chance to let your mind wander. Could those moments bring clarity to a problem you've been wrestling with? Or perhaps spark a creative idea you didn't even know you had? The next time someone catches you staring into space, don't apologize. Instead, smile and know you're giving your brain the gift of time, a chance to connect dots, explore possibilities, and uncover truths. What might you discover if you embrace those moments of stillness? After all, as the Stoics remind us, the answers we seek often come in the silence we avoid. Number 2. The perfectionism trap, breaking free for real progress. Don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be better than yesterday. This simple yet profound Stoic principle holds the key to breaking free from one of the most paralyzing traps we face, perfectionism. For her, this lesson came the hard way. She was a meticulous designer, always striving for excellence in every project. Her sketches were flawless, her presentations immaculate, and her attention to detail unmatched. Yet, despite her undeniable talent, she found herself stuck, unable to launch her latest idea. Each time she came close to finalizing it, she would spot a tiny flaw, an imperfection only she could see, and start over. Days turned into weeks and then months. The idea that once ignited her passion now became a source of frustration. One day, after scrapping yet another draft, a colleague said something that stopped her in her tracks. "You know, even the Sistine Chapel has cracks." He wasn't wrong. She realized her pursuit of perfection was not only delaying her progress, but also suffocating her creativity. The twist? The imperfections she obsessed over weren't flaws. They were part of the process, part of the story her work would tell. This is where Stoicism shines. The philosophy teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. In the case of perfectionism, it's about striving for improvement while understanding that perfection is neither attainable nor necessary. Modern psychology echoes this, showing how perfectionism often leads to procrastination and burnout, robbing us of the joy in the process. Think about it. How many times have you delayed a project, waiting for the perfect moment to start or the perfect version to emerge? How often have you held back, fearing that your work wasn't good enough? The irony is that while waiting for perfection, we miss opportunities to learn, grow, and even succeed in ways we never imagined. Her breakthrough came when she embraced the concept of the good enough product. Instead of aiming for flawlessness, she focused on delivering something functional and impactful. Her first launch wasn't perfect, but it resonated with her audience. Their feedback helped her improve, and she discovered something surprising. Progress, not perfection, is what builds mastery. Each iteration brought her closer to her goals. It's easy to laugh at how perfectionism tricks us into thinking we're protecting our standards, when in reality, we're just stalling. Imagine a chef refusing to serve a meal because the garnish isn't symmetrical, or a writer never publishing because they're rewriting the same sentence over and over. Funny, isn't it? Yet, how often do we do the same in our own lives? The Stoics remind us that we are defined by our actions, not our intentions. Taking imperfect action is better than taking no action at all. It's not about settling for mediocrity. It's about recognizing that flaws don't diminish value, they add character. The Sistine Chapel, after all, is breathtaking not because it's flawless, but because it's a masterpiece born from dedication and imperfection. So, what about you? Are you holding back, waiting for the perfect moment to start that project, share that idea, or take that leap? What if you stopped chasing perfection and focused on taking the first step instead? Could your imperfect beginning be the start of something extraordinary? Next time you're tempted to erase a draft or delay a launch, remember that progress beats perfection every time. What matters isn't getting it right the first time, but getting started. Who knows where that first imperfect step might take you? As the Stoics remind us, life is lived in motion, not in hesitation. Number 3. Arguments as learning tools, expanding perspectives. Listen to understand, not to argue. This Stoic idea speaks to the heart of meaningful conversation and personal growth. It's a principle he never thought he needed until the day his argument spiraled out of control. He was the kind of guy who always had a counterpoint ready. At work, during family dinners, and even while watching TV debates, he'd jump in with his opinion. One evening, he found himself arguing with a close friend over something trivial, like the best way to grill a steak. What started as lighthearted banter turned into a heated exchange. Voices rose, laughter disappeared, and by the end, they weren't even speaking. All that over a steak. The twist? The argument wasn't about grilling techniques at all. It was about his need to be right. He realized later, sitting alone with his thoughts, that his stubbornness had cost him something far more valuable than winning: the chance to learn. Instead of understanding his friend's perspective, he had been too focused on proving his own. This is where Stoicism comes in. The philosophy teaches that arguments are not battlegrounds, but opportunities to expand your thinking. When you approach a debate with curiosity rather than defensiveness, you open yourself up to perspectives you may never have considered. Modern psychology supports this, showing that active listening during disagreements builds empathy and fosters stronger relationships. Think about it. How many times have you argued to win rather than to understand? How often have you let your pride or ego stand in the way of learning something new? It's so tempting to cling to what we think we know, but as the Stoics remind us, wisdom comes not from knowing everything, but from being open to change. He decided to change his approach. The next time he found himself in a debate, this time about the best workout routine, he paused. Instead of countering immediately, he asked, "Why do you think that works best for you?" To his surprise, the conversation shifted. His friend shared insights he hadn't considered, and by the end, they'd both learned something new. It felt less like a clash and more like a collaboration. It's funny, isn't it? We spend so much energy trying to win arguments as if victory will earn us a trophy. But what if the real prize isn't winning, it's growing? What if every debate is a chance to sharpen your mind and expand your world? The next time you're in a disagreement, try this. Pause, listen, and ask questions. You might be surprised by what you learn, not just about the other person, but about yourself. After all, as the Stoics would say, it's not the argument that matters, it's the understanding it brings. So, what perspective could you gain if you traded pride for curiosity? Number 4. Talking to yourself. The key to inner clarity. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. This wisdom from Marcus Aurelius resonates deeply when we think about how we process our inner dialogue. For her, this insight came unexpectedly during a particularly hectic phase in her life. She was juggling everything: work deadlines, family responsibilities, and a fitness goal she couldn't seem to reach. Every time she made a mistake, she'd mutter things like, "I'm such an idiot," or "Why can't I get this right?" She thought it was harmless, just venting. But over time, those words started to stick. She felt stuck, overwhelmed, and convinced she wasn't capable of handling her challenges. One day, while listening to a podcast on cognitive psychology, she heard something that stopped her in her tracks. The way we talk to ourselves shapes how we see ourselves. The twist? Self-talk wasn't just harmless noise. It was like planting seeds in her mind, seeds that could grow into either confidence or self-doubt. And hers, unfortunately, had been growing weeds. The Stoics understood this long before psychologists did. They believed that we have the power to influence our inner world through reasoned dialogue. Self-talk, when done right, can become a tool for clarity and resilience. Neuroscience now backs this up, showing that positive self-talk can lower stress, improve focus, and even boost performance. Yet, so often, we're our own harshest critics. Let's be honest. How often do you catch yourself saying things to yourself that you'd never say to a friend? Would you tell your friend, "You're hopeless," or "You'll never figure this out"? Of course not. So why do we say it to ourselves? What if, instead, you spoke to yourself like a coach or a trusted advisor, offering encouragement rather than criticism? For her, the change started small. Instead of berating herself when she missed a workout, she said, "It's okay, tomorrow's a fresh start." When she nailed a presentation at work, she allowed herself a rare, "You did great today." At first, it felt strange, like she was talking to someone else. But over time, it began to feel natural, even empowering. It's funny how something so simple can make such a big difference. Imagine facing a tough situation and, instead of spiraling into negativity, telling yourself, "You've handled worse," or "You've got this." How might that change the outcome? What if every time you faced a challenge, you became your own biggest cheerleader instead of your harshest critic? The next time you hear that little voice in your head, pay attention. Is it lifting you up or tearing you down? And if it's the latter, ask yourself, would I let anyone else talk to me this way? You have the power to rewrite the script. So, what will your inner voice say the next time you need it most? Number 5. Mindless creativity, turning chaos into clarity. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius might not have had sketchbooks or sticky notes, but he understood the importance of action over overthinking. For him, this principle came alive one rainy afternoon, stuck in a meeting that seemed to stretch endlessly. As the speaker droned on, his hand began to move almost without thinking. He doodled a chaotic swirl of lines, loops, and odd shapes on the corner of his notepad. To anyone else, it looked like he was zoning out. But when the meeting ended, he glanced at the page and felt something click. Those messy, meaningless sketches had sparked a solution to the design problem he'd been wrestling with all week. It wasn't magic. It was mindless creativity doing its work. The unexpected twist? What looked like a distraction wasn't a distraction at all. His subconscious had been hard at work, solving problems in the background while his conscious mind focused on something simple and repetitive. Neuroscientists call this incubation, a process where creativity thrives when the brain is lightly engaged. The Stoics, too, recognize that clarity often comes when we step back and let the mind breathe, rather than forcing solutions. Think about it. How often do you feel stuck because you're trying too hard to figure something out? How many hours have you spent staring at a blank page or screen, waiting for inspiration that just won't come? What if the answer isn't to push harder, but to step away and let your brain work quietly in the background? For him, doodling became more than a way to pass the time. It was a tool for untangling his thoughts, and it didn't stop there. He started experimenting with other forms of mindless creativity, like journaling and coloring, even during moments of stress. These simple activities helped him think more clearly, often leading to breakthroughs he hadn't expected. Here's the funny part. His colleagues began to notice his doodles and teased him about them, calling him the Picasso of pointless meetings. But when his ideas started flowing and his productivity soared, they stopped laughing. Some even started doodling themselves. It's a reminder that creativity doesn't always look like genius at work. Sometimes, it looks like scribbles on a napkin or a half-baked idea in a notebook. But those scribbles could be the first step towards something extraordinary. So what about you? The next time you feel stuck, try picking up a pen and letting your hand wander, or journal without any plan. Could your next great idea be hiding in what seems like chaos? As the Stoics teach us, clarity often emerges when we stop forcing it. What small, mindless habit could you embrace today to unlock your own creativity? Number 6. Creative chaos, the power of messy workspaces. Order your soul, reduce your wants. This advice from Epictetus is often taken literally, as if to say, clean your desk and you'll clean your mind. But what if the opposite is true? For him, the lesson came on a particularly chaotic Monday morning. His workspace was a battlefield of books, coffee mugs, and sticky notes, each note a half-formed idea. To anyone else, it looked like a tornado had hit his office. He knew he should clean up, but every time he tried, he got distracted by the very mess he was supposed to organize. One note reminded him of a project idea. A stray sketch sparked a solution to an old problem. By noon, instead of a tidy desk, he had a notebook full of fresh ideas. And the mess? Still there. The twist? His so-called disorganized workspace wasn't a hindrance. It was a spark. Studies have shown that messy environments can actually boost creativity, encouraging out-of-the-box thinking. The Stoics might not have had desks, but they knew something about embracing chaos. Instead of fighting every disruption, they taught us to adapt, using circumstances as tools for growth. Think about it. How often do we feel pressured to maintain a picture-perfect environment, believing it's the only way to be productive? What if the clutter we fight against is actually feeding our creativity? Sure, a messy desk might mean you lose a pen or two, but could it also mean finding inspiration in unexpected places? For him, this realization was a game changer. He stopped seeing his workspace as a problem to fix and started treating it as a creative playground. He did set some boundaries. Important documents had a place, and coffee mugs had to find their way to the sink by the end of the day. But the rest stayed exactly as it was, a chaotic mix of ideas waiting to collide. It's funny, isn't it? Society teaches us to equate cleanliness with efficiency, as if Marie Kondo is the gatekeeper of success. But not everyone's mind thrives in pristine order. For some, a little chaos is the secret ingredient. So, what about you? Is your messy desk a source of stress or a wellspring of creativity? What would happen if you leaned into the chaos just a little, letting your environment reflect the swirling ideas in your mind? Could those scattered papers and forgotten sticky notes be the key to your next breakthrough? As the Stoics remind us, it's not the clutter itself that matters, but how we use it. Maybe it's time to stop apologizing for your mess and start embracing the creative chaos it inspires. What might you discover if you let your workspace breathe? Number 7. Pursuing the unattainable, the art of endless curiosity. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Seneca's words echo through time, reminding us to focus on pursuits that enrich our lives. But what happens when our pursuits seem impossible? For her, this question became more than philosophical. It became personal. She had always been drawn to the unknown, the unsolvable, the unreachable. While others set clear, manageable goals, she aimed for the stars, literally. Her dream was to work in space exploration, but with no background in science, math, or engineering, it felt unattainable. Friends politely suggested more realistic goals, and even she began to wonder if her dream was foolish. But something inside her refused to let go. She wasn't chasing success, she was chasing curiosity, and that made all the difference. One day, while browsing a bookstore, she stumbled upon a book on astrophysics written for beginners. She bought it on a whim, and that small, curious step led her down an unexpected path. Over time, she devoured everything she could about space. She joined online forums, attended lectures, and eventually began volunteering at a local observatory. Years later, she didn't just work in space exploration, she thrived in it. The twist? She never became an engineer or a scientist. Instead, her endless curiosity led her to a niche role in public outreach, where she inspired others to share her passion. The Stoics understood this drive well. They believed in striving for excellence, even when the goal seemed unreachable. To them, the act of pursuing something greater than oneself was more important than achieving it. Modern psychology agrees, showing that ambitious goals fuel motivation, creativity, and resilience. It's not about arriving at the destination, it's about who you become on the journey. But let's be honest. How often do we let doubt or fear hold us back from pursuing our biggest dreams? How many times have you shelved an idea because it felt too risky or unrealistic? It's easy to convince ourselves that certain paths are out of reach. But what if those paths are the very ones we're meant to take? Her story is a reminder that unattainable goals aren't about perfection or even success. They're about growth, learning, and discovery. Along the way, she faced plenty of setbacks. Rejection letters, dead ends, and moments of self-doubt. But each challenge pushed her further, teaching her resilience and igniting a deeper love for the unknown. It's funny, isn't it? The goals that seem the most impossible are often the ones that shape us the most. Imagine if she had listened to the doubts, the polite suggestions to aim lower. What if she had settled for a life that didn't challenge her or make her curious? Would she have ever discovered what she was truly capable of? So, what about you? Is there a dream you've dismissed as unattainable? What would happen if you took one small step toward it, no matter how insignificant it seems? Could that single action open doors you didn't know existed? As the Stoics remind us, the value of a goal lies not in its achievement, but in its pursuit. What might you discover about yourself if you dared to chase the impossible? Life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. Seneca's wisdom reminds us that living with intention and curiosity transforms how we navigate the world. Today, we've explored 7 powerful habits that bring Stoic principles to life. Habits that can sharpen your creativity, deepen your clarity, and push you toward goals you once thought unattainable. Each practice we've discussed, from embracing productive daydreaming to finding inspiration in creative chaos, holds the potential to reshape not just how you think, but how you live. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're tools you can use daily. Imagine the impact of turning small moments of reflection into breakthroughs, or using your unique quirks to uncover hidden strengths. But here's the real question. What habit will you embrace first? Will you pause to let your mind wander, or will you dive headfirst into a dream that feels out of reach? Whatever you choose, remember, it's the small, consistent steps that create lasting change. Now it's your turn. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which habit resonates most with you? Have you ever experienced a breakthrough by applying one of these principles? Your story could inspire someone else on their journey. If this video brought you value, hit that like button and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more insights to help you live with purpose. Let's keep growing together. See you in the next video.